Good morning and welcome to Jew in the City Speaks with your host, Allison Josephs, also known as Jew in the City. I hope you have had a wonderful Tishrei, that your holidays are going very nicely right now. Tishrei is generally a solemn time when we're sort of assessing our lives, thinking about life and death. Doing this in the middle of the pandemic with, the 20th anniversary of 9/11, with all sorts of natural disasters. This has been a solemn Tishrei for sure. And just to mix things up a little bit, we thought we'd bring some comedy into the middle of Tishrei. We've had him here before. His name is Ashley Blaker. He's a professional comedian, Baal Tshuva. It's pretty exciting. I know he's had some tours before, and now he actually has a show with the BBC. It's called Ashley Blaker and 6.5 Children. I think I got that wrong. He will correct me in a moment. Ashley, thanks so much for coming on and joining us today. What is the show again? Did I get it correct?
Nearly. I think you replaced the colon with an and. It's just called, the colon is silent though, so it's just Ashley Blaker, 6.5 Children. But you know what? You're close enough. I think that's close enough.
Ashley Blaker and then pause, 6.5.
You know, exactly, Ashley Blaker, 6.5 Children, that's what it is. I mean, you'll add it when you're doing the video in a few days' time. You can add that. Have it in mind. Have it in mind that you got it wrong, and it's fine.
I know, it's like I practice, and then like in that moment of truth,
it's exactly.
So I actually, before we brought you on, I got a chance to listen. It's quite funny. I assume BBC only brings on the best people, so I wanted to give our listeners a chance to listen to this show, Ashley Blaker, 6.5 Children, which is on the BBC now, and the show started in July. So we're going to bring you a clip of that episode right now.
2004.
Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Blaker. It's a baby boy.
2005.
Oh, congratulations. It's another boy.
2007.
Well done, Mrs. Blaker. It's yet another boy.
2010.
Don't tell me. It's a baby boy.
Yep.
2012.
I hereby declare you legal guardians of your adopted daughter. Many congratulations.
2014.
Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Blaker. It's a girl. Is this your first child?
Not quite.
Ashley Blaker presents 6.5 Children. Episode 4, Lockdown.
Hello, my name's Ashley Blaker, and this episode of 6.5 Children is all about parenting during coronavirus. Remember that? It might have passed you by. And if you're a child listening to a repeat of this in 75 years' time, this episode might explain why your grandparents can't add up and wouldn't know an oxbow lake if it hit them in the face. It goes without saying that the COVID pandemic was a hard time for everyone. NHS staff, shop owners, anyone with no interest in starting a podcast. From my perspective, I can tell you at a time of enforced lockdown, having 6 children suddenly seemed like it was a bad idea. Because whereas your quarantine probably sounded like this, mostly quiet, maybe the TV or radio on in the background, mine sounded more like this. I couldn't even work without being interrupted with,
Tell Shirley it's my turn on the Xbox.
Tell Simi it's my turn on the Xbox.
Can I have a drink?
Transfer me £10.
Sim today.
Simi and Shirley have broken their Xbox.
And obviously it was tough being stuck in the house together, not least because with 8 of us here, we permanently had an illegal social gathering. When we went out for one of our daily walks, I had angry reactions from people who thought I was running some kind of rogue school trip. And yet going out on my own could be even worse. When I went to the supermarket alone, people got very suspicious when they saw how full my shopping trolley was. A woman shouted at me,
Is all that food really necessary? The shelves are empty due to selfish people like you panic buying.
I wouldn't mind, but my children are such terrible eaters, I was probably only buying crisps. I remember the shops running low on bread and pasta. I don't remember reading about a national shortage of Monster Munch.
That was really funny. I really love it's so relatable, especially as an Orthodox woman, having a large family, doing Corona. There was a part of it, I wasn't sure if we were going to have it or not, where your family does Hamilton. That part really, I started laughing out loud for that part.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that was
really well done.
Thank you so much. That's actually from episode 4. Yeah, I wasn't sure what bit you were going to play. That was a whole episode about coronavirus. So all the episodes have got different themes. There's one episode about raising children with special needs. We have several children with special needs. It's something that's very relatable, particularly to parents in similar situations. There's an episode that's a story about how we adopted a child. So they've all got a different theme. But for sure, it is actually, it's aimed at everyone, obviously. But the whole reason, obviously, we have a large family to begin with is because of being Orthodox Jews, having, what is, to be honest, 6 children. We have 6 children. That's a bit below average. That's the point.
You got to, kind of do a little better.
Exactly. In the real world, that's a lot of children.
Right. I know we have 4, and I feel like 2 girls and 2 boys is sort of the last number that's almost explainable. When I was pregnant with my 4th, I was in a hair salon and a woman saw my belly and she said, "What number is that?" And I said 4. And she said, "Isn't that 1 too many?" And I thought maybe you were 1 too many. But yes, it's definitely a larger family is shocking to people. I want to hear how the show came about because, lots of people hosting the show wanted their own show at different points of their lives or saw themselves as, actually, I think that stand-up comedy is it will be my side gig, like when I retire, or maybe on the side, I plan to do it at some point. It could be because I watched too many episodes of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisels. But how did this show come about? I know that your story was sort of, you were in comedy, you became frum, and then you found a way to do the 2 together. So is this
That's right. Yeah. No, well, this show came about. Because I haven't actually been performing stand-up that long, like 5, 6 years. But I was doing the first time I did, real in brief story of my stand-up was I started doing stand-up comedy mainly for Jewish audiences. Then I thought, it'd be interesting to kind of take it out of that and to do it for everyone. And I had another show on the BBC called Ashley Blaker's Goyish Guide to Judaism. But then I really wanted to move away from like talking about that subject in such an explicit way. And I was doing, when I did the Edinburgh Festival, which is a very large mainstream comedy festival, a few years ago, and like playing to non-Jewish audiences every day. And I did this show called Ashley Blaker Observant Jew. See, I like my colons, Ashley Blaker : Observant Jew. And I mentioned in passing during the show, I mentioned I had 6 children, which I just assume, like, if I tell you I've got 6 children, you just go, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah. But when I performed for non-Jews, I'd say 6 children, and I could hear this audible, like people really, like an intake of breath, people couldn't believe it. And it struck me that, like, wow, I kind of have taken it for granted. I've lived in this world too long that I've just accepted that standard. And I thought there must be this should be something to talk about. This is definitely, there's a show in this to talk about the pros and cons, let's face it, of having a larger family. And and the BBC commissioned a series of it. And then as I started writing it, I then actually moved away from just talking about the fun of the large family, but actually other interesting aspects of our life. And obviously we just talked about coronavirus. It's been such a unique period for parenting, that some things that's also very relatable.
Really, if we can say anything other than this tragedy that's killed hundreds of thousands of people, it does have millions of people. It does have a lot of comedic moments there. I'm thinking, like, obviously anti-Semitism has been up all over the world. I saw some pretty not nice videos out of, London, but also all over the US and all over the world. Is there, like, how does this work with you being so outwardly Jewish in a time that we're living in right now?
I've got to be honest, I've been, thank God, I've been very lucky in that regard. I've really never had, I know some people talk about this and not to dismiss their experiences if that's what's happened to them, but I've been very lucky, thank God. I have performed big shows with my face looking very Jewish, and photos with me in a big black hat and a kippah and tzitzis and all the rest of it, and on Broadway, but all over Edinburgh or what have you. And I've never seen them graffitied. I've never seen a swastika drawn on my face. I've always kind of wondered if that would happen. Never has done, thank God. When these shows were airing, I looked on Twitter and I never saw a single anti-Semitic thing. Never. And funnily enough, I saw like a few things. Sometimes someone would say something. I saw a couple of comments. There was an episode where I mentioned in passing a child's circumcision, and I saw that's a subject that gets some people really worked up. It really does. And someone said to me, "Oh, anti-Semites," and I said, "You know what? I don't want to be one of those people that sees anti-Semitism everywhere. I'll call it out when I see it. But this actually isn't. This is just there are some nutcases who like that's their thing. That's the thing that they really bang on about. They, you're mutilating your child and not giving them a choice. I don't think that's necessarily anti-Semitism. That's just the thing they, So I thank God. What can I say? I've been very lucky in that regard.
I mean, the comments we've gotten have been things like, Hitler should have finished off his job. I'm waiting with the Louisville Slugger till the next time that it's legal. So definitely gotten more, some more explicit stuff. But that's great. If
I don't know, I really haven't. And I had a show called Ashley Baker's Goyish Guide to Judaism. That's quite like that's a title that you could imagine having attracting some attention, unwanted attention. No, never had that.
And how about like how Jewish it is? Because, as someone who spent a lot of time looking at Orthodox portrayals in the media and wondering, it seems to me like we have exactly one sort of produced show, which is Shtisel, like, more than just audio, and my opinion of Shtisel is that it's not even sort of a wholly positive portrayal because there's a lot of dysfunction. Obviously, soap operas need dysfunction, but being sort of the most insular and xenophobic, one of them in the world within the range of Orthodox can be. And you're also seeing sort of every dysfunctional situation happening at once to make TV interesting. And yet, because we're humanized, Shtisel is sort of this special thing that people like to say.
I think that's right. I think that's a good thing. I mean, one of the things that I really like about 6.5 Children is it's not about being Jewish. It's not. And I was on TV. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was on TV on a comedy show, and I told this story. I won't repeat it now, but quite a scatological story involving a bathroom and a tube of Pringles. And this very Orthodox guy came up to me in shul, who I didn't imagine even had a TV, but I think he'd seen it online. And he said he absolutely loved it. And I said, really? I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed. I would have thought you'd have hated that. And he said, no, you know what I really loved about it? He said, I cannot think of any time I've ever seen someone who looked like an Orthodox Jew on TV talking about something that wasn't Judaism. If you see a Jew on TV, they're either talking about Judaism or it's a documentary about how strange the Orthodox world is, or how they left anti-Semitism. Or how they've left the Orthodox world, or whatever. It's that kind of my Orthodox life type thing, or it's or it's a feature about anti-Semitism. You don't see Orthodox Jews that often, certainly not in the UK. Just on a show talking about sport or on a show talking about politics, just whatever stuff. And I think so. That's what I like. I think that is great. So Shtisel in that regard, I suppose. Look, but it's set in Israel, so that's you kind of like go, well, that's what you expect to see. But when they do the American version, I mean, that's it's interesting slices into life, but it's drama. It's not real people. I mean, that's the other thing.
Right, but it's the most humanized we've ever seen. But obviously, being a real human, just living your life, and also being Jewish is about as real as it gets. And I mean, I really. There was a photo series that was done a number of years ago. I don't know where these photographers find sort of the most extreme examples, but I'm trying to think even what they had. They had pictures of Hasidim like whipping each other and like lying in like dugout holes, like the most sort of obscure like Hagim traditions that I've never heard of, no one that I know has ever done. And I was thinking, like, what about just showing some Hasidic kids just on a swing, like licking a cone of ice cream, just doing a thing that all human beings love to do, and also being Hasidic. And it's so frustrating to me that I feel like so infrequently we get depicted as being anything that anyone else can relate to. So it's wonderful. was it a big process to get this show pitched? Was this a long time that you were, kind of shopping it around, or what was that?
No, really not at all. Actually, 6.5 Children got commissioned very easily and quickly. What happened was that I was going to be doing a live show, which I never ended up even starting writing, but it was going to be my show in Edinburgh in 2020, and then the pandemic came along in like March. I realized I was already by the end of February. I kind of thought this isn't going to happen, and we pitched it to the BBC as a series, and they bought it really off a couple of paragraphs. So paragraphs on a piece of paper, and I really had no idea exactly what it was even going to be. So no, thank God it's sailed through. Really want to do it on TV now as well, and we're talking about a book as well, and all those things are whole processes. And I'm doing a tour, a live show from next May, like 30 dates in the UK, and maybe we'll come to America at some point. So all these things then take time. I mean, that's the thing. It's a slow process. It's a slow business. People take their time, but sometimes you can get lucky.
You've had some pretty quick successes in terms of even your stand-up career has not been for so long, and you kind of jumped in and had some great successes.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah.
What kind of feedback are you getting from the viewers, from non-Orthodox Jews, from non-Jews, anything, sort of?
Oh, this show for 6.5 Children has been unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, like beyond anything I could have imagined. I really was a bit worried. I wasn't sure. It's an unusual show. I mean, obviously listeners, viewers, what have you, can go and check it out, and it's really easy to find on the BBC website, which is Google Ashley Blaker 6.5 Children. You can decide for yourself. But as you heard on that little clip that we just played, it doesn't have an audience, and when you're but it's kind of stand up, but also involves my children, and so it's not really like anything else. And shows when you don't have audiences, I kind of like, it's hard sometimes. It's like you kind of go, oh, is this meant to be funny? Is this comedy? Is it? So you never know what it's going to be like. I had no idea. I wrote it all new, and then plus, I just didn't know. And then there was things like I'm talking about, as I said, special needs children, stuff like that. I was worried our parents of other special needs children going to go, oh, well, I don't agree with this. People are so angry at the moment. People get angry about everything. People get angry at everything. So I was really worried. I'm not joking. I've had, apart from I mentioned those circumcision comments, I can barely remember a single bad comment. I saw so many. I was looking on Twitter, and I couldn't believe the comments, and also and the number of tweets about it. But also big organizations like MenCap, which is the largest UK-based charity for the mentally handicapped, Adoption UK, First for Adoption, Autism Awareness, big America, like the Autism Society in America, big charities that shared the show and said, you've got to hear this show. And so, I was really blown away and really grateful that it had such an amazing response.
Is anyone telling you anything sort of vis-a-vis your Judaism or your Orthodoxy that they were surprised in any way? Or is it the lack of complaining that you think is just a good sign?
No, but this is the thing. I was kind of hoping in a way that people wouldn't dwell on the Judaism, and it's always rather frustrating when there are a few press, articles. I'm sure I know you talk you talk a lot about looking at articles about Jews and Judaism, what have you, and maybe it's funny, you kind of are looking and are interested when there are positive articles about Orthodox Jews. But one of the things that as an Orthodox Jew, someone who gets written about all the time, one of the things that irritates me is actually when they write too much about me being Orthodox Jew. I kind of think, well, it's a bit lazy. I saw a few features where that's not what the show's about, and I kind of felt like you get pigeonholed. It's a bit like writing about a black comedian just being black, or if that's what they talk about, if that's the thing they're talking about. But if it's not, then why are you talking about it? It doesn't. It's kind of weird. You don't like Chris Rock. I don't know, you don't have to refer to him as a black man every time you talk about him, and that's not, and I find that kind of irritating. So I was kind of
you want it to be on the merit, on the talent, on the content.
Well, exactly. yeah, you want to be the fact that you're Jewish is almost irrelevant, and that's as it should be. And so yeah, so it was great that actually all the social media, the kind of response we had from the listeners, and it was the #1 show actually, a stand-up show on the BBC website, and so it was hugely popular. And I saw the words Jewish or insight into Judaism or Jewish family very, very infrequently. It's mentioned a little bit in the first episode because I kind of felt like I felt that I kind of had to explain why we have 6 children. So I was explaining about the context of becoming an Orthodox Jew, and that everyone seems to be having children, and this kind of competitiveness that you kind of want to. I was also talking about meal. I'm sure they do this in your neighborhood, in your community. Like you have a baby, and everyone buys you makes meals for 2 weeks for you. You know, they have they do that in your shul, Alison?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. The food. I mean, when we've had children, the food, but it's quite competitive. People are like trying to outdo each other. They don't think it's like chicken and rice. They're bringing you these like cordon bleu, gastronomical feasts every night. So it's kind of like no wonder everyone wants to keep having babies. This is the best I've ever eaten. You just want to keep having children in order to have those meals. So so I talk a little bit about that in the first episode. But thereafter, I think, as I was saying about, it's just interesting when you have a show that's just the Judaism is so light touch. So I mentioned in that episode about homeschooling the children. I mentioned the fact they go to a Jewish school. There's an episode, the one about special needs children. I tell an anecdote about my eldest son's bar mitzvah, but it's stuff like that. It's just, that's as it should be. It's like, you might as well be talking.
I think you want to be seen as, a great comedian and not great for a Jewish community, Orthodox. Yes, exactly. All that, but I will say one more thing, because there is this constant repetition of the negativity of only showing the worst stories, the people trying to escape the most dysfunctional examples. What ends up happening is that people see orthodoxy as just a dysfunctional and abusive system, as opposed to seeing all the normalcy and love and positivity. And so, I think we're still having firsts as a community. We just a couple months ago, there were 2 Orthodox kids that were drafted to, the MLB.
I saw that, yeah.
Meaning we have, there's still industries where we're not really so welcome. So although the Jewish community in general has had great successes after, hundreds or thousands of years of being chased around and not being allowed to own land or vote, different things like that. Although the Jewish community at this point is quite comfortable in all sorts of positions, to be an observant Jew, to have a company work around your schedule, or an organization in entertainment, media, sports, there's still a lot of places where there's not so much space for us.
100%.
Only mentioned for the negative. And I think it really does create in people's minds, just again, sort of the symbol of the Jew as this awful thing. So I totally hear that you don't want to, sort of be, good for an Orthodox Jew. You want to just be, seen as a.
Yeah. I didn't mean so much good for an Orthodox Jew. I think sometimes it's like you just don't want to be pitching. It's just, I don't think you don't need to. I don't feel I need to be called Orthodox Jewish comedian. Someone said to me, one of the newspapers, a big publication here, said, how do you want to be described? Orthodox Jewish comedian? Should we call you this? I said, no, comedian. I'm comedian, Ashley Baker. You don't say black comedian Chris Rock. You say comedian Chris Rock. I'm not,
Right.
That's what I mean.
The problem is that if a person, God forbid, is a thief or an abuser, they will find a way to stick in the word Orthodox to be there. That's that. And again, this is what our nonprofit is about. It's because they find, if it was never mentioned and it was, just a comedian or just, a person committing a crime and it wasn't mentioned, then it wouldn't be either way.
No, I hear.
So many hit pieces and so much focus on that way that I think any time that it does get mentioned.
I hear. It's not a bad thing. Oh, sound has gone. I think Alison's sound has gone. Or my sound has gone. What's going on? Well, someone's sound has gone. I think it's Alison.
Rami, should we take a moment to sort of restart? What's the last thing?
Okay, hold on one second.
You were just saying that it's because I said you don't say Chris Rock, black comedian. You said, but you were talking about how when there's a criminal, like if there's a crime, you might say Orthodox Jewish.
Right. Okay. Is that the last thing you heard?
Yeah.
So then I can just start.
I
We can
think
start with a new moment there. All right. So tell me when, and we'll just start a new topic at that point. We have about 5 minutes left, Rami.
Okay.
Right before the sound dropped, I mentioned you had 4 minutes to go.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So I'll do another 5 count.
So just or 3 at this point.
Okay. So I heard your family, or at least I think they were your family in the show. Are they actually acting in the show, or do you have actors portraying your family?
No. They are my real. So actually, my wife is not Gemma. That isn't her. I as the show, the idea was to use my real family, and as I wrote the show, her role got bigger and bigger, and I felt that it probably needed someone who had a bit more comedy chops about them in terms of performing, and she was very happy not to be in it. But my real children appear in it, all 6 of them, including my daughter with Down syndrome is in it. So that's the real children, and they had a lot of fun making it, and they're in the photos. And they've enjoyed their little moment of their brush with fame. And who knows, maybe what I really would like to do is actually a TV version also with the real family, and it would be a kind of very well, I suppose a bit like my Unorthodox life, but it could the kind of complete other side of it. So
that would be amazing. Well, God willing, I mean, you seem to be on a roll with pitching these shows and getting them picked up. So we would certainly, I mean, that would be, I think, just great for comedy and humanity, but certainly also just an extra positive thing for our community. Just only a couple minutes left. Where do you get the inspiration from? Where do these, I mean, I assume your everyday life, but are you just walking around with a pad and pencil all the time?
No, well, you'd love to, but the trouble was, this series was about like the last many years of my life. And it took a lot of, the writing, it wasn't that hard. It was about trying to remember stuff, because had I spent my eldest son is 17, if I'd spent the last 17 years walking around with a piece of paper and a pen, that would have been fine, but I didn't know this was ever going to happen. So that's the trouble. So it was about really trying to remember every anecdote, every funny story. As I say, one episode's about adopting a child, which was over 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. And I'm trying to remember, I was having to go through all my old emails and trying to remember stuff. So the material came quite quickly, but just trying to remember it all, trying to remember the stuff that's happened to me.
And you writing it all, or are you bringing concepts to a team? And
No, I'm writing it all on my own. So.
Amazing. All right. Well, like I said, it's really, I mean, it's a very funny show from the bit that I listened to.
Thank you.
I encourage our audience to go to BBC and look up Ashley Blaker, 6.5 children. See, I just did Shuva right there. That's what Tishrei is all about.
Very good.
And I just did 6.5 children. We really wish you a lot of hatzlacha, because
thank you.
Finding like clean comedy, just something that the whole family can listen to. There's so much garbage that's like, in media now, that your kids in the room and you're like, oh God, turn that off right now. So, I mean, this is just good, clean family fun.
Thank you.
And you're doing a good one for the members of the tribe. So if you can just stick that little one line in and then do the rest about all your talent.
Okay.
But
Great.
we wish you a lot of hatzlacha, and please come back with more amazing updates.
I will do. Thank you. Thanks so much, Alison.
Great. Shana Tova.
Maxim Tova. Thank you.
Okay, and thanks so much for listening. You can catch us same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.